This is Radio Gambia, the first media broadcaster of the Gambia, established during the colonial era. In the early 1960s, the radio was run with technical assistance and expertise of personnel from Great Britain. At the time, majority of its programs were rebroadcast of those in other parts of Africa and England. Although it created its own news, educational shows and music programs, Radio Gambia initially depended heavily on the BBC for programming. As Radio Gambia began enjoying massive popularity as a debut media broadcaster, one man stood out, Badou Lowe of blessed memory. The late Badou Lowe was an excellent broadcaster with utter charisma, setting the pace for the pool of broadcasters that will dominate the industry in the years that followed.
Badou Lowe was the pioneer broadcaster in this country. He was employed at the information office by Captain Peters. He had a very good voice. Maybe you broadcasters will call it a baritone. He was like a baritone, deep guttural voice. Highly loved. He spoke very good Wolof. In fact, demotic Wolof. He had stature. He was quite a tall guy. Hefty. Very influential. If you didn't hear it from Badou Lowe, for the average Gambian, it was not true. Badou Lowe had to say it for Gambians to believe it. He was not influential.
The late Badou Lowe was a doyen in the broadcast industry in the Gambia and beyond. His work made headlines around the world as many would gather at the McCarthy Square to listen to his news broadcast. Badou became the source of news and information for especially the local people as he translated into the local language the news read by Captain Peters. His son, based in the United States, Yusufa Lowe, knew very little about his father at the time, but his interest in his life and his styling achievements left him with an insatiable appetite to know more about Gambia's darling, most respected broadcaster.
One of the most interesting things I learned about him, about his work, was him working with Alex Haley, the author of Roots, Kunta Kinte. He helped Alex when Alex was doing his research about this book. And in fact, Alex sent him a copy of the first Roots, one of the first copies. And the second thing that I found interesting was him translating the news during the Second World War. And this was between 1939 and 1945. Because Sir Dawda Jawara, the late first president of the Republic of the Gambia, talked about him in his book titled Kairaba, where he said he used to run as a child to McCarthy Square to listen to Badou's translation of the news. So he described him as very eloquent. He said at some point they used to go there and and listen to him, and then my dad would start the news by saying yengu yengu binga hamne mo nek sa hareba. So, and later they nicknamed him Yengu Yengu.
Amongst his many accolades was the MBE, the Member of the British Empire, conferred on him by the Queen of England. I reached out to his former colleagues at Radio Gambia, but they tell me Badou was fun to be around and that he left an indelible mark in the country's broadcast industry.
I know him very, very well because he's somebody who is very, very honest and straightforward. Definitely he's a man with who is responsible for a lot of people. He's very, very honest, very, very honest, I know that, and very generous. Anything he has, he gives it away. He gives it away. But Badou Lowe is somebody who is very, very jovial. He always jokes with his staff. He is laughing all the time. He never annoyed with any of his staff. If you do anything which is wrong, he will call you and advise you. You have done this. Please don't repeat it again. And that will be in the private.
As with many other iconic Gambians, very little or none of their works are documented.
And he was wise enough to sort of recruit rising people who became rising broadcasters, star broadcasters. Swaibu Konate, just graduated from Kansas with a bachelor's in journalism. Babukar Gay, he recruited Babukar in '69. Mrs. Sarah Goddard, who he also joined in '69, just like Babukar. People like Ibrahim Akul, Ami Juf, Sol Njai, C.D. Jammeh, Lalo Samate. All these were recruited and mentored by Alaji Badou Lowe before he retired. And such that even after he retired, at the very, very beginning, Radio Gambia had some of the best broadcasters along the West African coast.
As Radio Gambia, now GRTS, clocks 60, the radio continues to be the center of broadcasting in the country, serving as a passage for well-respected broadcasters and communications professionals in the country and beyond. Many of these people drew inspiration from the likes of Badou Lowe of blessed memory. And as the radio continues to inspire lives in the media industry, and with the dawn of a new era, the country is set for many more Badou Lowes, primed and poised to build on the gains made in the broadcast sector. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Cham.